Hello, hello. Welcome to today's webinar, everyone. We're going to get started in about, 2 minutes. So we always like to have folks tell us a little bit about where they're joining us from as people roll in. So in the chat, feel free to drop in there where you're joining us from. So this is Alina, and I'm joining you from Treaty 7 in Calgary, Alberta. And of course, we have other folks that you see on your screen with me. And so Jill and Fayaz, did you want to say where you guys are joining us from?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jill. I'm also joining out of Calgary, Alberta, so Treaty 7 territory.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Fayaz, and I'm from Pickering, Ontario. So I'm joining you from Williams Treaties in Pickering.
Awesome. I see Martina Tessema, you can write your notes to the panelists and to the attendees so that everybody sees. But Martina's joining us from Edmonton, Alberta, and then we have Harla Wilcox. Hello, Harla, from Regina, Saskatchewan. Awesome. We love Regina. We love Edmonton. Well, we love everybody, so we're good with all that. Tim from Edmonton Seniors Coordinating Council, Treaty 8, welcome. Amber from Grand Prairie, awesome. And Perry Abdullah make sure you put it to panelists and attendees so the other attendees can see you too. Burlington, Ontario. Steve from Edmonton. Joanne, I just saw your name yesterday in my email box. Hello, nice to meet you. Sandra from Calgary, Salima from Edmonton, Rupal, Calgary. I know Rupal, he's on our team. Christiane, it's going so fast. Timmins, Taylor, Calgary. Hello, Taylor Sparkling Eyes. She's from our team as well. Mara Gruno from Calgary. Aaliyah, Thunder Bay, Hallie, Calgary, and Alita, Treaty 7. Sarah, and she is from, I'm going to mispronounce that, Silix, Okanagan land, right on. Yvonne, the T-Dot, Forest, Forest, aren't you doing the pit count? We have a big homeless count coming up in Alberta, so everybody's pretty stressed about how we're going to do that in wave 3. Kelowna, hello, Sarah. Riley, Calgary. Ryan, hello, Ryan. And Jen from Treaty 6 Edmonton. Jim from Maple Ridge. Awesome. Keep going. We're going to get going in 1 minute, but we'll let everybody roll in. Okay, and we've got Martin from Edmonton as well. We got lots of Edmonton folks today. So if you're just joining us, please feel free to drop your name in the chat box. Pragash, also, from Ottawa. Kyler, hello, Kyler from the GOA, Government of Alberta. I'm guessing you're joining us from Edmonton. Robin from Hamilton. Kim from Medicine Hat. Andrea from Steinbach, Manitoba. Ali from the T-Dot. Maylin from the Chinese Community Program on Family Violence. Awesome. Atlanta, Canada. Wolsta Kiyik Sarah. I'm so sorry I butchered it, but welcome and morning. This is Sarah or Shah Khan from Calgary, and Elam Sadeh from Ottawa. Beverly from Edmonton. Awesome. If you're just joining us, just keep name dropping your name and where you're joining us from, your treaty territory or your Indigenous community that you're joining us from would be awesome as well if you know about that. And if you don't know, you should know. So look that up. All right, Natalie from Edmonton and Treaty 6. Awesome. Polly from Toronto as well. Cool. Well, keep doing that stuff so that everybody can see where everyone is coming from. We're going to get going because we got lots of stuff to share with you today. So thank you again. Wanted to give you a bit of a overview of what's on tap today. We're going to rip through this and you're going to have some engagement to do as well. So if we see folks seemingly not paying attention, it's because we're also participating on Mentimeter. So we'll tell you a bit about what that is in a second. It's so that we make this way more interactive and have you engage with the content with us, and to enable us to learn from you and you to learn from each other. So there will be some interactive stuff happening. We're going to go through a couple of parts to this too. So this workshop type thing we designed with having service providers in mind that are working with data or are wanting to work with data from a service design, service valuation, impact evaluation perspective. So we're tailoring this content today with you in mind. We've had other workshops that are more at that system funder level, and we're going to, of course, do that too. But we heard loud and clear that there's a bit of a more of a nuanced approach when it comes to design of services and program at that service provider level. So we're going to talk to you as our audience today. But if you're a funder, this is, of course, really relevant to you as well as somebody who oversees these processes. We're also going to talk about service taxonomy and why that matters. If you don't know what that is, don't worry, we're going to go through it. And we're also going to talk about this concept that we're introducing through our coming quarter on a social sector service menu and what all of that means to you and how you can get engaged in that. So next slide, please. I'm going to introduce you to my two colleagues that are going to be tag teaming this with me. So I'm sure you've seen me before in these webinars, but I'm Alina Turner. I'm one of the co-founders of HelpSeeker. And I have Jillian Ma, who is one of our community success leads at HelpSeeker, and Fayaz Samjeev, who is the manager of community success. And they're going to tell you a few things about themselves when it's to the right slide, but those are going to be the folks that are going to be walking you through this content today. Next one. So just a little 101 about us. I promise I won't belabor it, but if you don't know much about HelpSeeker and why the heck we're talking to you about data today, we're a B Corp social enterprise that does work in social technology, which means that we develop tools and processes, et cetera, that are designed for the social sector. And that's really to raise our game in the digital era and help you scale innovation to resolve complex social issues you are working on. So we tend to partner with all of you, really, your municipalities, decision makers in the sector, but also service providers in the sector. And you'll see that in a second. The two big partners that we have at the national level that we always want to do a shout out to are the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, which has made a pretty big investment in HelpSeeker to scale our navigation app and our systems mapping work across Canada. So that's a huge kudos to them. And then our digital partner federally is the Digital Supercluster through the ISED ministry. So those are the ones that we always like to give a shout out to. However, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all the partnerships with all of you as well. And you'll see in a second why that matters to us and hopefully why it matters to you, because we're here to make your life better and make the lives better of those that we are here to serve as well. And our value add is on the technology side in particular. Next slide, please. All right, so the solutions that we're focusing on, and in the coming year, you're going to see quite a bit of activity happening. We've got three main buckets of product lines that we work on. Help seekers, so actually people looking for assistance, and it might be from a prevention lens, somebody that might be experiencing risk factors, or it might be somebody in crisis. We have a navigation app that I'm sure that's kind of what people know us for, is a navigation app. You can download it on the App Store. We'll tell you more about where to get that. It's free. This is the stuff that's been funded by CMHC to scale out. It's available in like 22 different languages and more every day. And then we've got a well-being screener. So folks that may not even know what services they might need. It's again a preventative needs assessment that anybody can do anonymously and then get recommendations for services to connect to. For service providers, same thing. And we're going to talk to you today about the kinds of stuff that we're developing for you. And it's a bit of a plug because there's a whole lot more happening over the next 2 years because of the digital supercluster that is going to be coming your way. So lots of tools that are going to be enabling you to connect to other service providers to do integrated case management, for instance. Share information about clients with clients' permission, of course, to be able to do a better job integrating care. And then for decision makers, it's the data that you need to make those decisions in as real time as possible without having to, again, spend $100,000 on a consultant to tell you what social issues you have. We have so much of this data already, so it's really unlocking it, making it really accessible and relevant to you to get to the decisions faster, if you will. So that's just a bit about us, but you're not here to know about that. Maybe I'll have Fayaz and Jill introduce themselves because you might not know them as much as you've seen me blab on before, and so I'm not going to talk about myself, but I'll hand it over to Fayaz to intro himself and then to Jill to do the same. Go for it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Fayaz, and good morning. I appreciate everyone joining us so early. I know it's 9 a.m. in Calgary and probably a lot earlier in BC. So thank you, everyone, for joining us so early. And we're going to talk about data today. I use he, him pronouns. And I just joined HelpSeeker actually last month. So I'm excited to be here. I have about almost a decade worth of experience in the nonprofit sector and youth homelessness. So I'll share my experiences along the way, but I'm happy to be here and joining everyone today. So Jill, over to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jillian. I'm a community success lead here at HelpSeeker. My background is in information design, which is really about helping people understand complex issues and helping them understand complex problems. And my interest really lies in using design for social good. So in this case, it's designing data, it's designing stories around that data. And again, like Alina said, making it accessible, making it educational, making it empowering for communities. So I'm super pleased to be speaking with Alina and Fayaz today, and let's get started on our content.
Awesome. So today I'm going to go through the section of why data matters. So if you're here today, you're obviously joining us because you're interested in data and you want to know more about it. So let's talk a bit about why that matters. Before we go into that though, we need to really talk about and acknowledge the trends and the situation that's going on in the sector right now. So let's first talk about limited resources. That's something that we hear all the time. There's actually 170,000 charitable and nonprofit organizations in Canada. 85,000 of those are actually registered under the CRA. And we all know that there's a limited pool of funding, donations, and other resources in the sector. And so all 85,000 of those organizations are competing for very, very limited resources in the sector. And so I think that's something we need to acknowledge as when we talk about data. And getting access to reliable, timely, accurate data. If we want to really, get those resources to our organizations, we need to use data in a way that we can demonstrate impact and justify our investment. And that's both honestly in the financial means, and everyone wants to know about how money is spent. But we really need to need to demonstrate impact and social return on investment. So that kind of moves me to outcomes and accountability. So it's human nature to want to see, impact and change right away. If I had $20, I want to know where that's going, and I hear that mostly in the sector where, I need to be really careful of where I decide to donate to, which organization I'm going to donate to, because really honestly, I don't know if it's going to go to, the clients that they're serving, or it's going to go to administration. Really, all of that's important. But more and more, there's a need to demonstrate those outcomes and accountability. And so we know that, funders and donors are asking for that because that's something that people want to see. But really, honestly, and I'm really happy to say this, it's not just funders and donors that want to demonstrate outcomes and accountability. Over the last decade, we're really seeing a transition towards organizations wanting to do the same. And they want to go beyond just outputs, like the number of clients that you serve, and really actually demonstrate positive changes for the lives of individuals who are coming into their care. And I think that's amazing. And so how can we use data to help with that? And the last thing here that we have is changing times. And the old adage that says the only constant is change, and we know that. The future is uncertain. We've seen that with COVID. And so when you might go and do a needs assessment, but that can change a month from now, 6 months from now, and that data could be out of date. So whether it's the opioid crisis or the housing crisis or whatever, we know that the social sector bears the weight of most of those problems and holds that burden. And so we need to be able to quickly respond and effectively as needs change, as governments change, and as leadership changes. So having accurate, reliable, and timely data is actually the first step to addressing all of these trends that we're seeing across the sector. All right. So, I've worked in the nonprofit and youth homelessness sector for almost a decade. And in my experience, it's nice to talk about getting access to good data, but actually doing so is another story. So I'm going to talk through some of the challenges that I've seen that are most common, that I've experienced myself across the sector. The first is that we already collect data for our funders, right? Most of organizations don't just collect data for one funder, they collect it from multiple funders, and that's a lot of work. I think we need to acknowledge that. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, oh, it's quarterly stats time. Like, what are we gonna do now? Like, we actually have to just drop everything we're doing. And I'm pretty sure everyone on this call can relate to that. So, in all honesty, the reason why people have that reaction is because they're just collecting that data for the sake of it. They're not actually using that data. And in the same way that people, regularly track their steps and their calories, etc., we need to make a shift towards collecting useful information and data that can be used for continuous learning and improvement. And if we do that, we're really gonna go beyond just collecting data for our funders. The next one that we've heard is we don't have resources to invest. And in the sector, almost all resources go towards service delivery. Most organizations actually struggle with even funding their central admin functions like human resources, finance, and operations. So when the sector is further asked to invest their resources in research and evaluation, the common response is we don't have the resources. And I'm going to be honest, that's a real challenge, and I definitely get that. I think in order for things to change, though, data-driven decision needs to be made affordable, and the right tools need to be there in place. And so at HelpSeeker, that's what we strive to provide, and we really want to support organizations with this. And that's really our mandate, is how do we do that? And the last thing that I kind of want to talk about is data doesn't create change, action does. I've heard that over and over again, especially when individuals are working directly with clients and that service delivery is the most important. Honestly, it's true. As we'll see next in the next slide, data on its own is pretty much useless. But when you couple that with visualization, context, analytics, data really helps us to know where we can make the most impact. We know the landscape changes quickly, and even on a daily basis, the data that we have can be out of date. Some of those reports that you do could be rendered useless or obsolete. And so we need access to real-time data that you're not just basing your decisions on incomplete or old data, because when you talk about action creates change, well, that action could actually be harmful. to clients and service delivery. So, when we think about the social sector, poverty, addictions, domestic violence, having actually a lack of good data can be detrimental. And let's go to the next slide. So I'm going to take a pause for a second. I've talked a little bit about my challenges and what we've heard across the sector. Does that resonate with you? And what else holds the sector back in your opinion? You can just respond on the Mentimeter here.
What you can do here, if you want to share an answer, is you can take out your phone, you can go on your computer and just go to menti.com. The link's up at the top of the screen. And you can just type in this code. So 21362253. And you can let us know your thoughts there.
Thanks, Jill. Crisis priorities, personnel, capacity. Absolutely, some of the things that we've talked about. Yeah, lack of training is definitely a good one. And I think it's important that as we make this shift towards using good data and accurate data, we all need to be a little bit data literate, right? And data literacy is a really important topic that we need to talk about for sure. Stuck in old ways. Yeah, we have so many more tools at our disposal. We have, artificial intelligence, machine learning. We really need to take advantage of this in the sector. It's something that we experience a little bit of a lag on, but it can do the most social good. So for sure. Capacity, yep. We definitely just heard that. This is great. So it seems like most people are experiencing the same challenges. Fear. I know it's a small one, but I'm really focusing on fear there. That's a really interesting one. Because data you don't need to be scared of data, but a lot of people are because of there's not enough training or it seems complicated, but it really doesn't have to be. It really doesn't. I wish I could read through all of these, but I'm gonna move to the next slide.
Thanks, Fayez. And yeah, I think you're absolutely right. There's a lack of capacity. There's some fear. There's training that needs to be happening if we want to use data. There's data literacy that needs to happen, and that's because, quite honestly, when you think about what data is, it's unorganized. It's ones and zeros. It's a quick line of text in a box that just describes such a small piece of what's going on in reality. And when you take all of those little pieces, it is overwhelming. It is a lot to make sense of. But data is really kind of the starting point when we want to think about solving social issues. If we can spend tons of money investing in what we think is a solution and actually figure out that it's not a solution, or that it's keeping us in the same place, or that it's causing harm to our communities. And so we really need to be able to ground our decisions in data that's real time, that's up to date. And that data isn't just useful itself, it takes work to make it useful. You need to be able to categorize it, you need to be able to organize it, make sense of it. You need to be able to look for patterns and trends. That's when we sort of get into this awareness and understanding. Social issues aren't just, they don't just live within a certain sector. They don't just live within a certain group of organizations or within a certain city. They're connected to a lot of different things. So we need to be able to have that awareness of patterns and trends and, systemic impact. there's definitely lots of broad socioeconomic data out there, but and that gives us a good sense of, you know, broader patterns. But when we couple that with community specific context, so that could be more qualitative things, that could be events happening in your community, that could be, you know, talking to people with lived experience. It's really powerful. So you have all this data, you have all these patterns that you're picking up on, and then you have your community specific context. That's when we really get the power to be able to make decisions. And that's when we really can, you know, identify the places where we can make the most impact. If we know what those insights are, if we know where our leverage points are, that's how we're going to be able to make the most social change.
I couldn't agree more, Jill. Okay, so we just want to get some engagement from everyone and really learn from you in this session about your data needs and how you do data. So let's start with this first question. What data do you currently use to assess a need for a service? Yeah, intake forms, program evaluation, requests, yeah, inquiries, community consultation. Yeah, for that, yeah, for sure, definitely. Focus groups, interesting, qualitative. So a lot of these are administration forms based and that sort of thing. And I saw something before that said old ways of doing things, which if I can't really get everyone's feedback on this, but I'm going to say that most of this is probably logged somewhere in a database. You might be doing it manually, writing it on a form. Think about the ways that you're doing things now and how you could take it to the next level. How could you automate some of this stuff and really use this data to generate insights, right? So, you know, if you think about an intake form, you get a lot of good data on intake forms about needs and stuff. What about if you could automate that in a way and digitize that in a way so that you're actually doing a needs assessment for all of your clients at one go, and you, with the click of a button, as you bring in new clients, all the needs update. These are things that we need to start talking about and using and transforming data to knowledge, to information, to insights, and then actually using that for, right up into that wisdom piece where we're really trying to do the now what and calls to action of that data. So this is really good information. Focus groups are a fantastic way of getting information from clients. Absolutely. Okay, so the same question, let's talk about funding applications. What data do you currently use for funding applications? Yep, needs assessments. I'm seeing HIFIS. Stories are a great way to demonstrate impact on your funding applications too. Historical program data and forecasting, absolutely, absolutely. You know, this is where we talk about those needs assessments, and Alina mentioned it can cost sometimes up to $100,000 to carry these out. And what about if there was a better way? What about if there was a better way to actually get real-time data on needs assessments and that sort of thing? These are some of the things that we have in the works, and we're looking at doing through some of our products. And so more on that, and stay tuned. But yeah, definitely demographics. We need that information as we bring services to the right people who need it at the right time. So absolutely, this is great. Oh, this is my favorite one. What data do you currently use to measure outcomes? Yep, client data, internal assessments, admin data, seeing HIFIS again. Yep, program use, length of stay. These are all great things. And most organizations actually struggle to measure outcomes and demonstrate that change. You know, just to flatten the room a little bit, outcomes are the change that you want to see for your client. So we go beyond those outputs and those products that you're generating, you know, bed nights or number of clients served. We're actually trying to see, you know, are youth getting, sorry, I'm talking my youth homelessness lens. Are individuals getting housed? Is their health and well-being changing? You know, are there changes in feelings of safety? Those things, these are things that are hard to demonstrate and hard to think about sometimes. But honestly, with the way that we have changes in how we can get data and access data, there's different ways to get this information. And so definitely great things to think about. Satisfaction surveys, yeah, absolutely. And we need to think about ways to get this effectively, easy ways to get this, and then, you know, ways to get this that are grounded in community and you know, culturally and ethically good ways of getting data. I think these are things that we need to think about. Okay, and I think this is the last one, which is, let's talk about program design. What data do you currently use to inform program design? Yeah, surveys, user feedback. User feedback is an important one. We should never be designing anything without the voices of those individuals who use a service. Yep. Use a lot of HIFIS data. And something that you probably see a lot is, yeah, this data can that we're using to inform program design can become outdated quick. And so we need that real-time data, needs assessments. Best practices, I really like that one too. That's a great one. Great, awesome. Thanks everyone. This is very, very useful. So I'm going to pass it over to Jill now, and she's going to talk about taxonomy, what it is and why it matters.
pardon me, I was muted. Thanks, Fayaz. We just spent a lot of time talking about, you know, the different data that that needs to be collected. Lots of it has to do with supply and demand. You know, what services are out there? What's the distribution of services? What do people actually need? What indicators are telling us that they need something? And that's all super important because, you know, we can't go about decision making without understanding those needs. And when you think about what good data is, it should be able to tell you what's out there. It should be an accurate description of what's going on in the world. It should tell a story, and it should reflect the state of the current system. So the way that we do that at HelpSeeker is we have our systems map, which is a real-time map of all the community and social services across Canada. And some of the data fields that we collect are things like the contact information for those services. We look at where they are geographically. We look at what services they offer, what their eligibility criteria is, what kind of services they offer. Is it, you know, is it a program? Is it a location? Is it a financial benefit that people can get? And so those are sort of the data pieces that we collect to tell a story from, and that we use when assessing need in a community. We also have different tags that we apply to services to describe, you know, what you can actually get from those services. So, you know, can you go to that service and get clothing? Can you go to that service and get counseling? And so when we apply these tags, this becomes our way of sort of being able to slice and dice and analyze the data and really understand kind of the service landscape and what's out there. We also do geographical mapping. So we have maps where we can look at the amount of pins in an area compared to interactions. So what people are searching for. So if we can look at a certain neighborhood and say, okay, all the services are located here, but people in the neighborhood across the river are actually searching for that, and they're not able to access it. So we can kind of look at things from a geographic perspective, looking at things from a community perspective, comparing communities across Canada. And again, those are just all different data fields that feed into the insights, that feed into the information that we can use to make decisions. So looking at this systems map, you know, you're all service providers. You all know what kind of decisions that you have to make on a day-to-day basis. I'd just like you to think a little bit about, okay, if you had this information about what the landscape is, what services are out there, how could that help you in your own organization to make decisions?
Yeah, so I'm just reflecting on some of the other pieces while people are plugging their components in. If you know what the service map looks like and who's doing what, is that another good data point to have to get a sense of where gaps might be as well? And then I'm thinking about the interactions for end users, because we get that in real time. Obviously, there's some more data that you don't have to wait every 5 years for the census to know what people are looking for. Yeah, so that's exactly what we're seeing here. Deliberate collaborations, that's really interesting. Who else is doing this in your neck of the woods, if you will? That might be a great partner you didn't even know about. Yeah, the up-to-date information, absolutely. Making referrals to clients, of course. Underserved areas, this is great. System connections and the network. Yeah, there you go, the referral process. What services are needed? This is a really important one. We saw one really obvious one in Calgary when we were looking during COVID was searches around suicide prevention went up considerably, but there was very, very few programs that were doing that. So is there an ability to be more responsive when you see a spike coming up to feed the system new resources in a much more real-time way than, again, the more traditional cycle of program design? Yeah, there you go. The gap between what people want and what's being offered. Absolutely. Yeah, systems navigation. There you go. Yeah, if a client comes in and is looking for X, but you're only offering Y, what's your recourse? What's the game plan for that client in that case? So, and let's not just send them to our friends next door every time. Like I know there's some of us that have like our go-to agencies where we always refer, which are great, but are there other folks in the community that should be part of that referral network? Focus funding needs to services not covered by others. There you go. So when a funding application comes up, looking at the systems map and understanding how that funding opportunity goes towards meeting gaps, as opposed to guessing based on only what you know from your intake forms, which are an important input, but it's only one part of the view of what's happening in the community. Supportive referrals. Excellent. That's great. That's a really interesting one. How is my community on a per capita basis, let's say, compared to another community next door of a similar population? Do we have, what's the right service mix that we should have in our community? And is there certain service mixes that tend to have better outcome at a systems level? Absolutely. Regional flows of clients, of regional trends around needs. Yeah, making sure our values and goals are in line with the needs of our community. Absolutely. It's another source of listening to the client, if you will. I don't know if you noticed in the slide that Jillian showed, there's star ratings as well. This was an interesting one, and we got some pushback from some service providers when we introduced that. But just like any other service, we need to know how clients feel about a service and whether they received the right service when they came in. So we're going to be doing quite a bit more work around end user ratings of services. And I know that might be uncomfortable, but looking at the data that you all are saying you're using, it seems to be actually very well aligned, because you're already serving your clients as well. So now the trick, of course, is going to be, how we do that online anonymous assessment, right? What they might be able to tell you face to face is going to be different than what they say anonymously. But it's another great source of insight for all of us making some of these plans. User rating could cover the cultural competency of the service. Absolutely. We hear this from the LGBTQ, the Indigenous community, that they want to have a better sense and better transparency on service competency in terms of cultural supports and inclusivity, for instance, as well. So absolutely, we could be using it in that manner. Thank you. Maybe we'll go to the next one just to keep us moving along.
Yeah, so thanks again, everyone, for that feedback. And what we just showed you was our current systems map, and that's super great. It's a really great resource for, I would argue, for any service provider who's looking to understand kind of the service landscape. Over the next few months, we're working on actually refreshing some of those pieces of the systems map. So we're looking at doing a UI, which is the interface, what you see on your screen, a refresh of that, a user experience refresh. So, making sure that the right results are popping up for the right person at the right time, making that whole journey of looking for help easy and seamless. We're looking at adding French as one of the languages on the systems map. And then also focusing on some back-end improvements. So like I mentioned earlier, we have those lists of tags, and that becomes the biggest way that we gather insights. And so what we're doing is we're redoing sort of that tagging structure. We're redoing the way that we collect data so that we can improve the way that listings are mapped, the way that they're managed, the ways that they're updated. And then that also gives us better insights as to what's really out there. These improvements, we're really excited about them. Like I said, it'll drastically improve the searching experience. So if somebody's typing something in, they'll get the right results at the right time. Accessing the information will be easier, so it'll be streamlined, it'll be clear, it'll be super easy to make sense of. We're adding hundreds of new service tags and attributes to really dive deep into that filtering, that analysis. And then that data will also be linked to our decision support systems. So those are some new technologies that we're developing right now to help people make decisions sort of at a systems level, at that bigger, that higher policy level. So that data all goes into that, and it feeds right into that system. So a little bit about what that new taxonomy will look like, and this is based on what we've heard from community. You know, we've done lots of design labs. We've been working with service providers for a couple of years now, and we've heard demand that this data is great, but it needs to be better. And so the way that our data currently works is, you know, if any type of service is related to food or a certain topic, we just tag that generally as food. That, again, that's great. It doesn't tell us enough detail to really be able to make decisions and understand what's out there. And also for people looking for help, there's a really big difference between getting a food hamper versus a hot meal versus a gift card to go buy your own groceries. Those are all really, really different services. And it's those kinds of nuances that, you know, help us understand what the service mix is. We talked about supply and demand. We talked about, you know, knowing what people want, knowing what people need. This is just another step to help us get that level of detail.
This will also, sorry, Jill, I was going to just say, flip back to that one. The food one's my favorite one because, and those of us that have done this work on the ground, we know that we might be in an outreach program and we do all these things, but we got that bus ticket, right? And so we're like, are clients coming to me just because of that bus ticket? Like, and if so, like, let's just give them, like, let's just be real about that. And let's figure that out, right? Because that might be a policy change, that might be a completely different design on delivering affordable transportation versus making a whole program of all these different things, but people actually just want that one thing. So we need to be able to have the data to drill that down to figure out exactly what the end user is looking for. And then imagine your focus group. If you have this in your back pocket, imagine the questions you would have and ask differently if you knew this was the case for your own programs and then for the broader ecosystem of social services in your community. Thanks, and sorry to interrupt, Jill. This is just like really near and dear to my experience. Thanks.
No, not a problem, and I think you're absolutely right that we tend to bundle programs up and just smush everything together under one description because it's easy for us, and that can actually be really misleading for people. People should know what they're getting, and they should know what to expect. And if you're false advertising, A, that's not good for users, but B, that also can be harmful when we look at the data. If people are making decisions based off of that data, then that's not going to help anyone. We really do need that level of detail and that transparency. And so that's kind of what this improvement is all about. Just a quick preview of what our new service taxonomy might look like. Again, this is in the works, and we're thinking through it. We've got some bigger categories identified here, like food supports, health supports, financial supports, goods. And then some categories underneath those. Those categories will be broken out further. We just didn't want to fit them all on the slide because that's a lot to show you. But just to give you a sense of what's out there, we're looking at things like personal care supports, housing, caregiver supports, a new category for services like navigation, advocacy, things to help people get into programming that they need. We're looking at emergency and crisis supports, really sort of the whole spectrum of, you know, what a person might need to support their well-being. So again, we'll ask you to take out your Mentimeter and just, you know, let us know your thoughts on this. What kind of services would you want to see represented in the taxonomy? when I say taxonomy, I just mean the new tagging structure, the new list of services that we're developing. So let us know, what kind of details would you want to see in there? What kind of information would you want to get?
Interesting. Yeah, the harm reduction services being a category. Absolutely. The thing about taxonomy too is it needs to respond to the changing times from a supply and a demand perspective. So while we're doing these improvements, we're integrating machine learning into all of this so that we're constantly learning what people are looking for and being able to organically morph this with the times. So this whole concept of like, the back in whatever grade 10, we learn about the Linnaean taxonomy of animals, animal kingdom and all that. That's great. And we need to have some architecture, kind of table stakes, if you will, but we also need to make this smart and learn and adaptable, because there's a whole range of new programs under COVID that never existed before COVID. So it would be really missing the boat if we didn't capture that stuff. So we also, while we're developing this new approach, we also need to be thinking about it in an organic fashion. So these are great. I love that somebody said spirituality too. We take a well-being approach to our systems mapping. So we look at things like spirituality or cultural support, arts, recreation subsidies. Those are all critical to somebody's well-being. So it would be a remiss if we didn't include this as part of our network of services being mapped. Formal versus informal services, that is so important. There's so many times that we to only map, let's say, nonprofit sector. So if you don't have a CRA registration number, you're not on the map. Well, what about the informal supports, the civil society efforts that are happening all the time? And those are also really organic. They come and go. So your data set, it needs to be a dynamic inventory, right? It can't be this one thing. It needs to be constantly up to date as the system changes. Somebody says, love animal services. Absolutely, right? As I'm a proud parent of one child and 3 dogs. So yeah, there's lots of services being added as well. And now with everybody getting a pet and the economic impacts of COVID, we know that there's going to be impacts on abandoned pets, and that's going to be critical for us to keep on top of. Somebody said hoarding support. Absolutely. So folks, that if you don't know what that is, sorry about that, but it's obviously really specific to from a mental health, but also housing perspective, cultural supports and trauma-informed lens. So you're now also speaking about, well, when somebody says, well, yeah, we do trauma. Well, there's the we do trauma generally, and then there's the do we actually have a core competency in trauma-informed work? Same thing about LGBTQ competent services. It's one thing to be a universal program that doesn't discriminate. It's another one to actually have somebody and some competency and training on your team and in your programming that's really specific to, let's say, counseling for somebody transitioning. So we need to be able to show this in the service taxonomy as well, because that matters from a data perspective, and it matters from an end user or somebody looking for assistance as well. It's great. Okay, I think we're good to move on. Thank you, everybody.
So one thing with these new services, so as we map out what those services are, what those types of services are, what people can actually get when they go to those services, another layer of detail that we're improving on is the attributes of those services. So not only what the service is, but all the characteristics of it. So you have counseling, but who's that counseling for? Is there a population focus? Is there Is there an eligibility criteria? You can only come if you're part of a different program. You can only come if you have this form filled out, if you fall within a certain income range. Is that service delivered online? Is that service delivered in person? Will they come to my house? Will they meet me in the park if I want them to? What language is it delivered in? Can I get there in a wheelchair? There's all these extra characteristics that just add more color. They add more insight to that data. And so we'll ask you again, just looking at this list, when you see population, cost, delivery language, occupancy, what other kinds of characteristics of services would be useful for you when you're making decisions? So we'll just take a couple of minutes here. What kind of service attributes would help you assess need in your community?
Yeah, so I think Andrew Thornton here's a good one. He said, is there sensitivity to priority or intensity of a given service for a given service provider? And that's exactly that. Those are two actual attributes that you mentioned there, Andrew, I think. So prioritization, is there prioritization criteria, i.e., chances are, like, unless I show chronic homelessness, I'm very unlikely to get into this service. So being transparent as a service provider on the prioritization criteria, is that something important? And then the service intensity, i.e., is this kind of I can drop in and go as I please, or is this like pretty, a treatment program, let's say, where it's day-to-day service delivery for me. I need to participate in a program, etc. So those are two good examples from Andrew there. That would be attributes. Yeah, so we got core beliefs. Ooh, this is a good one. This is a good one, and it's a sensitive one. The big example that I'll give you is around, for instance, the faith-based service delivery. So there's absolutely faith-based service delivery that we need to be transparent about, and there's nothing wrong with spirituality, right? We just need to be really clear to end users about some of those core beliefs that might be guiding the service. Neurodiverse accessibility, absolutely, good one. Who's funding the service? Very interesting, right? Because we all know that the funder expectations will have an impact as well, and funders might have requirements on who you can refer to as well. So it's as important for the end user, but because we're talking about using the systems map to make referrals, you as a service provider might need to know if you're because you may not be able to refer as easily into somebody that's not funded by a particular funder. Time from engagement to getting the service. Oh, that's the whole wait time. Are you full or not? And we always try to engage everyone to claim their profile and make sure that stuff is up to date. In our sector, I'm telling you, like, we suck at this, right? Like we don't talk transparently from a public perspective about how backlogged we are. And we're kind of doing ourselves a disservice because we keep getting referrals and we're actually full, and every half your time is being spent being like, sorry, I can't help you. Sorry, I can't help you. Well, is there a way that we can be transparent about that so we're not raising expectations? The worst is when you're getting a referral and you make the call, you go through the story, and actually it's like, it's going to be 12 months. So, and actually one of my family members just went through this for counseling. It took 18 months to get help.
Thanks, Alina. That's one final part. We're going to talk a little bit about service menus. So, we're building out this taxonomy. We're building out this database of what services are out there. But those can also be used to feed into something that's called a service menu. So just a quick poll, we see some people do know what a service menu is. Some people don't, but let's talk a little bit about what we mean by that. Alina, do you want to take this one?
Absolutely. And I know we got 3 minutes left, and I promise you we will definitely give you the gist and tell you about what's next. But y'all are actually very familiar with the service menu because I'm pretty sure we've all made an order on Skip the Dishes or Uber Eats or something at some point. And you've probably been so delighted by how easy you went through to cruise the various types of menus of food out there and were able to make that order online, and you knew exactly what you were getting. So that is a really great example of a digitized menu. So that's exactly what we're talking about here too. We're building this ability to tell this a rich story about exactly what the end user is receiving and is available to them. But we're also really clear about what they're getting and not getting. In other words, if I'm making last night we ordered Vietnamese, and I was able to like adjust my thing to get some extra veggies. So I was able to articulate, and what I got was exactly what I had articulated. So I'm getting what I'm ordering. And they weren't selling anything that they weren't able to offer me either, right? So they didn't put something on the menu that didn't exist. So that's essentially where we're moving towards with HelpSeeker is having your experience be as seamless as it is right now on some of these other online services. It's just, it would be on the social service menu in particular. There we go. So that's what's coming our way. It's not a plug for Mucho Burrito, by the way. The next piece, though, and this is a call to action to all of you as folks in the social sector. We are going to be offering this in kind. This is part of the CMHC investment in us, so there's no cost to you guys at all. But one of the services that we're going to be offering in kind to our community is to help you build a service menu for your organization. So we're going to be hosting a whole range of workshops coming up, and they're going to be on population focus. There's going to be some that are on subject focus. So for instance, we're running one with the Alberta Sexual Assault Association on sexual violence. So we're bringing all those folks together that are thinking about that to build the service menu for that sector. And then of course, that's going to be benefiting everybody on the system. And I think we're going to be at about 250,000 different services in HelpSeeker. But as we go through these subject matter service menus, we're going to be also helping you guys walk away with a service menu that you can be clear in your organization about what it is that we offer and don't offer. You can put that online, you can print that in as a PDF and all of that. So hopefully something super practical, like, you know, you go into a restaurant and you get your menu. Like, we want to be able for you guys to walk away with that type of a easy to understand, here's what my organization provides and doesn't provide. Of course, we would love that service menu to be online on HelpSeeker so that everybody in Canada can get access to it as well. And that's, of course, your choice. In the meantime, if you haven't claimed your listing on HelpSeeker, please go to the helpseeker.co/service-providers so you can sign up and do that. This is all in kind to you guys, thanks to the CMHC investment. And by all means, if there's additional thoughts and suggestions you have, there's lots of ways to get in touch with us. And we really, really thank you for all of your support of our work. We wouldn't be here without your support. Next one, I think, Jill, we're just about wrapped up.
Yep, I think we are wrapped up now. So thanks,
perfect.
Lena. And yeah, like she said, go to helpseeker.co/service-providers. Make sure that you're signing up for those workshops that will be coming soon to help you build out that service menu, to help you apply this new taxonomy, get these data insights. That's a super valuable resource that's available to you. So we encourage you to take advantage of that. Our upcoming webinar will be on May 20th. So if any of you are interested in joining that, today we talked a lot about the importance of data and how to make sure that your data is well structured and tells a good story. But then there's a piece that comes after that. So, okay, we have this data, but so what do we do about it? What can we do as a community? What does that mean for us? what needs to happen next. And so we'll talk a little bit about some of the tools, some of the training that we're developing to help communities with that, and to help people make not only make those decisions, but take that data and put it into action. You know, getting that change going, getting it into practice. And so we're really excited to talk about what's coming down the pipe there, and hopefully we'll see you all in May as well.
Thank you so much, everybody. And thank you, Jill and Fayez, for a great presentation. We will absolutely send the recording and the deck, and you'll be a little bit blasted by all the opportunities to engage on the service menu. And please do so, and please share that widely. It's a free resource, and we'd love to see you engage with us in building this out over the coming months. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.